In 3, 2, 1.
Good morning and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners check-in, scheduled for about an hour and a half. This topic today is the 2021 property tax levy discussion, and then reporting out on external boards and commissions that we are part of. So this is October 22nd, 2020. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board. We also have Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser, and on the phone is Commissioner Gary Edwards, and we have Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell with us. And so let the discussion begin. Thank you for letting us start a little bit late for me.
Okay, so we're going to start this morning with property tax. And on Tuesday, you received this very complicated worksheet, and we'll walk through this. But I thought a good way to start to make it a little less complex is that we would walk through how a levy rate is built. So I'm going to share my screen. I can figure that out now.
While you're figuring that out, commissioners, we can ask questions as we go along. We don't have to hold them till the end.
Absolutely. So what you see on the screen is a worksheet. We're going to build the general fund property tax levy for 2021. And the first thing you do is to multiply last year's highest lawful levy, which is not the same as last year's total levy because it excludes refunds and it excludes the road levy shift, but you multiply that by the levy increase. So last year's highest lawful levy for the general fund was $41,082,600. And we're going to multiply that. Just for the moment, we're going to assume that the highest lawful increase is 1%. And we'll talk more in a few minutes about the IPD, but for now, let's assume the IPD is over 1% and you can raise it 1% because that is normally your legal limit. That generates $410,826. The second thing you do is you multiply the value of new construction, which we receive from the assessor, by last year's levy rate, $858,544. The next thing we do is the state of Washington owns value in our county, and they tell us the property value, and this is only for utilities, by the way, they tell us the property value that they assess for their value. And we have to say that the increase in the value compared to last year is what we get to increase our levy by. Right now, we don't have numbers from the state. We should be getting them soon. I hope to have them by the end of this month. They may come in November, but we don't have them yet. So for now, there's no increase for the increased value of state property.
Robin, could I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
What is the difference between the state owning the property that they might assess the valuation to versus what they are renting instead of owning? So I'm just wondering if there's going to be any increase because the state seems to be renting more property.
You know, well, property tax is assessed to the owner. So if all the state did was rent property, then the increase wouldn't come on state property. But the state does own property. If I look at, I'll just pull up the levy worksheet. Property taxes. Levy calculation at 1%. This, by the way, what you're about to see, pull it over onto this screen. This is the very complicated worksheet that I fill out every year. The current assessed value of the state property, or last year's assessed value, was $605,929,195. And if that went up, we would get to take the difference and multiply it by last year's rate. But they own a substantial amount of property. So,
Okay,
okay.
got it.
All right. So the next thing we add is the treasurer tells us how much he refunded last year in the levies, and we get to add that to next year's levy. So it's just a report that we get from the treasurer. This year for the general fund, he told us that the refund was $253,713. And then the last thing you do in the road fund is the board has the option to do a road levy shift. And I'm assuming that you will do the same amount of road levy shift this year that you did last year. At this point in time, we're assuming it's the same. So that's $3 million on the levy shift. That brings us to a total levy for 2021 of $45,605,683. And to get to the new levy rate, we divide that by the total assessed value. And as of right now, the assessor has told us that the total assessed value of all property in Thurston County is $40,690,693,603 to give us a levy rate of $1.12 and a bunch of decimal points because they count, but roughly $1.12 per thousand of property value. So the increase in the levy is, you compare last year's levy of $44,169,457. That's the total levy, not the highest lawful. So the increase in the levy is $1,436,226. And the decrease in the levy rate is about 4 cents. The levy rate is actually going down, not up. That is a phenomena that is caused by total assessed value increasing and the cap on the highest lawful levy. That is driving the rate down. So that's how we calculate the levy. Then you asked, how does that apply to an individual homeowner? So I looked online, and according to Redfin, at this point in time, the average assessed value of a home is $395,000. So if I had a home in 2020 that was valued at $395,000, my share of property taxes that's paid into the general fund is $459.05. If I were to pay that based on today's value. If I were to do today's value times the new rate, it would be less. But we know that the property tax value for most people is probably going up. So to calculate a reasonable increase in assessed value, to estimate what the impact of increasing the property taxes on an individual homeowner, I'm going to calculate the growth in total assessed value in the county. So to do this year's rates, the total assessed value was 38 billion 6,995,556. So land increased at about just over 7%, land and homes, total property value. And that would mean that the average assessed value in a home is $422,891. If I lived in that home of that average value, my property tax next year would be $473.97, or an increase of $14.93 for the year.
Okay, Robin,
Yes.
this recipe for the property tax rate, is that created by the state?
Yes.
And how does the state's numbers that you don't have yet, that you hope to get by the end of the month, how will that, to what extent can you guesstimate that will impact the numbers you're giving us now?
Let's say that the values, the state property increases, it's generally a very small amount of money, but let's say that it increases by $100,000. It's usually a lot less than that.
So this is the worst case.
It would change, it really wouldn't change anything, because once you do the multiplication, it's just a couple bucks that we increase the total levy. So the impact on the homeowner is negligible.
Okay. Gary, you doing the dishes?
Say we're not fine.
No,
A lot of noise
No.
coming through.
but I'm wondering about that increase that Robin's talking about. If you can figure that out, it's given me a headache already, and we haven't even got to the bottom of it.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, even if the state value were to go up by $10 million, it wouldn't affect the individual homeowner at all. So that's really not the factor to get hung up on, quite frankly. And the board has no control over that amount, none. The place where the board has control in the levy is the up to 1% here, this number right here, and in the general fund and the road fund, the other thing that you control is the levy shift. Those are the only two things that the board has any control over at all. So if, the assessed value, that's the purview of the assessor. They're going to tell us how much that is. It's a simple bit of math to add that to the levy. You don't have a choice in that. The value that the state comes in, it's a small amount. It doesn't impact the bottom line by very much. You don't have a say in that. The state's going to tell us what their assessed value is. We multiply it by last year's levy, we add it. The refunds, that's the purview of the treasurer. There's no option for you. We add it in. So really, your decision is all about the up to 1% lift. And let's change this calculation by saying that you're only going to lift the levy by the limit of the IPD, which this year is 0.602%. Now, don't forget that the increase of a full 1% on the taxpayer is $14.93. But at the IPD, the increase on the taxpayer is $13.23 for a difference of about $1.70. That's the impact on the taxpayer. But the impact on the county loses $163,509.
What was that number?
$163,509. Now, that's on this big complicated worksheet because we do these calculations for every one of the four funds that are funded by property taxes. You also have, you don't have to pick either 1% or 0.602. The board can choose any amount up to 1%. And depending on how much you choose up to that 1%, you may or may not have to do a resolution of substantial need. If you pick an amount up to 0.602%, then you do not have to do a resolution of substantial need. But anything between 0.603 and 1, you do need a resolution of substantial need.
Robin, what year did that 1% tax limit come into play? Do you remember?
Seems like it was in the late 90s. I don't remember exactly the year.
And do you know within the reasonable past maybe 10 years, what has the traditional BOCC done? Has it been standard or has it been all over the map?
Oh, no. The board in the 10 years that I have been here, and to my knowledge, in the 10 years before that, the board increased the levy by 1% every year.
So they had to do that substantial need resolution?
3 or 4 times.
Okay.
3 times that I'm absolutely certain of, and I think there was a 4th.
And so anything 0.603 up to 1%, that resolution has to be done.
Right, and the resolution of substantial need is quite simple. A few weeks ago, I gave you an example of the last one we did. It simply says that the Board of County Commissioners finds, based on the needs of the county, that there is a substantial need for the full 1% increase. It's that simple.
And doing the base IPD of 0.60 and not doing the 1% or so is 163,500 to the county.
That is the loss to the general fund.
Right. Okay.
So you could do, none, no property tax levy increase in this one area that you have this control over. If we set this at 0, then the increase for the property tax owner, assuming average increase in an average priced home, would be $10.66, or roughly $4 less than if you did the full 1% per year. $4 per year is what the average taxpayer would say.
All right.
Robin, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Is there any possibility that you could actually put this in a short statement form that could make sense to the public? And what I'm driving at is a lot of times it sounds like perception is more of an impact than the reality of the assessment. So I'm just wondering if there is a way that you could put that in pretty simple layman language. If you owned a house of X value, this is how much it would change if we didn't do anything. This is how much it would change if we did the 0.6%. And this is how much it would change if we did the 1%. Is that feasible that you could articulate that in a sheet of paper, like in a couple of paragraphs, or is it just too complicated?
I think I could try to boil it down to something that simple. I had started at a very simple level, and you all asked for details, so this is the detail, but we can get it back to something much simpler.
That's kind of what I was asking last week by just using the average home. But go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, this is kind of a simple way for me if I had something like that, but I don't want to ask for that if my seatmates don't think that would help in explaining the whole taxing process is all. If you guys understand it better than I do.
I don't know if I understand it better than you. I'm in favor of putting something out to the layperson. Ty?
Okay.
I understand it, but I agree that the public doesn't always understand it. So I'm certainly supportive of trying to generate something that makes it more understandable to the public.
Yes, that's kind of where I'm coming from here. I get a sense of it. I'm not going to claim that I understand this whole formula completely because I really don't, but I do get a sense of how it all fits together. But I just think it would be beneficial if we had a page or maybe 2 pages, I don't know, double spaced something, so it isn't too extensive of a report, but to let the public know how this plays out with their individual situation. And I don't know, maybe you could have a $100,000 property up to a 500,000, I don't know, or 100,000 to 250 or something like that, so people could relate to whatever they have. And I know there's not a lot of properties out there that are 100 anymore, but there's still probably a lot of properties out there that are in that 250 category. And then there's those that have been able to afford something substantial, 750 or something. Just something so that they could see where they fit in this and how it was going to affect them. Because oftentimes I get questioned by the public, well, they've got this 1% thing in place, but how come my taxes went up by $600?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get to an explanation of that. So no.
Right. Unfortunately, what I cannot do is explain why their taxes went up $600. I can explain
what happened. Did I get lost in the
conservation futures, the medic one, and the road fund?
Guess I'm cut off.
I can.
Hang on, Robin. You're not cut off, Gary. We hear you. Gary thought he was cut off. Go ahead, Robin.
So I can't help the taxpayer with the, how much did the school district that they live in go up or down? What about the fire district? Do they live in a transportation district? Each property is, very close to being unique. Neighborhoods are definitely unique in the mix of property taxes that are assessed. And the assessor publishes a really nice report, and your tax bill that you get from the treasurer has this all broken down. I can only talk about how the 4 funds that the county has impacts their individual tax.
I think we did lose Commissioner Edwards, by the way. He dropped off.
Yeah,
As
he died.
Robin
It looks like it.
But Robin's listening in. Robin Courts, that's good.
So basically, this is the calculation, and the question for you is how much, if any, of a levy lift do you want to do? And this table that you see on the screen right now, I've set it up so you could tell me, how does it look if we only do 0.5%? How does it look if we do 0.2%? So I can easily show you what the impacts are. What if the property tax or the property value went up 10% instead of 7%? This table is set to run what if scenarios as much as you would like. But the real questions that are before you are here. You have 4 options. One is, and you have these 4 options for each of the 4 funds. And you don't have to do all 4 the same. So for each fund, here are your 4 options. No increase, and no increase means this 1% here because these other increases are happening. An increase in an amount up to 0.602%. That's the IPD. That's your legal limit this year. Number 3 is you can pass a resolution of substantial need and raise the levy in any amount between 0.603 and 1%, because 1% is your absolute cap. And number 4 is a concept I haven't talked to you about before. And that is a concept of banked capacity. And what the law allows is that if you do anything less than 1%, you can bank the remaining amount under 1% to use in a future year. So, for example, oh, and by the way, if that's over the IPD, you'll need to pass a resolution of substantial need. So here's an example of how we'd use bank capacity. If you did a levy increase of 0.2 and our legal limit is 602, then you would bank capacity of 0.402. And then next year, let's say for a moment that the IPD is over 1%. So your legal limit is 1%, and should you choose, you could use your bank capacity and do a levy increase of 1.402. So bank capacity gets to be added on in a later year. So really your options are no increase and or, yes or no to bank capacity. Any increase up to the IPD and yes or no to bank capacity. A resolution of up to 1%, and if it's anything under 1%, yes or no to bank capacity. Those are your options when it comes to the tax.
Okay.
And we've never done bank capacity before.
Because you've always raised the full 1%.
Always done the 1%.
Yeah. It's interesting times that we're in because I'm really concerned with the bottom line for the county and providing services at the same rate we're not in, even though the building is coming along, in my head, unexpectedly, the sales tax revenue, unbelievably higher than we projected. And yet we still have an unacceptable high unemployment rate. And we still have more spikes coming, and not knowing what the feds are going to do with continuing resolutions or getting further money coming to the states. Don't know what kind of help that's going to be. I'm so reluctant to raise the tax, but it impacts everybody, impacts me, but I'm looking at the bottom line of the county as well. And not wanting to be users.
Impact on the homeowner is a few dollars a year.
Yeah.
The difference in the impact between 0 and 1%. So
we're going to be decided. We'll decide this on Tuesday, or when do we decide?
We'll bring this to you on Tuesday.
Okay.
This is or see if this worksheet comes up. Oh, I've already got it up. So here's the very complicated worksheet that I've given you. It's got all the numbers that we just walked through when I said, here's how you calculate general fund. All the numbers are on this page. There's an example of 1% for each of the funds. There's an example of 602% for each of the funds. Here's the difference in the levy for what we would collect at the county. And then here at the bottom of this sheet is the impact to the homeowner, assuming averaged values.
Robin, oh, sorry.
I'm just saying we have Commissioner Edwards is back on the line. Go ahead, Ty.
I was just going to say, if you take a stab at that 1-page or 2-pager, to me, a key point is that a key point to put in bold is that when assessed property values rise, the citizens' tax rate falls either way. Like either choice we make, their actual tax rate falls. And I think that's important for folks to understand. I mean, if their bill is a few dollars more, that's based on the fact that they have a more valuable asset, and which they might be able to borrow against. They might be able to do. There's value to them by that reassessment and recalculation of value, and so I think that's important for them to understand. Most people, we often think of taxes in terms of tax rate. And if that's how folks are thinking about it, the tax rate is dropping in either scenario.
That's correct. If there were no increase in a homeowner's value of their home, the amount that they would pay into the county would actually be less.
And that should be highlighted, what Ty just said.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to get that in there. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And unless you have any additional questions, Romero and I will bring this for a decision next Tuesday. And I'm sure he's going to allow time on the agenda to discuss it more if you would like to. But I do need a decision no later than the end of this month, which is the end of next week, so that we can do the appropriate paperwork.
And even though you
Robin,
get a decision from us, go ahead, Gary.
No. You go ahead, and I'll ask.
Even though you need a decision from us by the end of the month, is that whether you get information from the state by the end of the month or not?
Yes. whether I have information from the state or not, because that, quite frankly, is not part of your decision.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Gary.
I was just wondering if we couldn't get that synopsis of what we're going to be deciding in that, short dissertation that Robin's going to put together on this, maybe by tomorrow afternoon or something, so we could have it to look over and study a little bit rather than get it on Tuesday and then try to make a decision on Tuesday. Or even if we got it on Monday, just so we had a little time to mull it over.
So I have done a very brief paper of what your options are, and that was handed out this morning. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Edwards, that you are not here to receive that. It does not have the explanation for the homeowner on it, and I probably can and would not be able to do that by tomorrow.
Yeah, but maybe on Monday we could get that. No, I got the other paperwork from you and that other explanation. But
Okay.
I'm just thinking of that being the write-up for from a layman's perspective, so they would have a good understanding of what we're trying to do here.
I'll see what I can do, but I'm not going to promise it because my I've got a rather full calendar too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but as long as we can go, until the end of the month, we don't have to make it. It doesn't sound like on Tuesday. So if we get something, we can review a little bit. I guess that's one of my concerns, that a lot of times we seem to do things without. I know you guys understand it, and so it probably doesn't bother you as much, but at least from my perspective, I do like to think about things for a while and see, well, how does this fit in comparison to this, and look at it from the standpoint of my constituents, I guess.
So Commissioner, tell me what you don't have that you would like from me, because I've provided you what the difference in the impact to the homeowner is. I've provided you comparisons at different rates. What else would you like to have?
I guess what I'm looking for, and I missed out on a little bit of this conversation towards the end when I was disconnected there when I was talking, so I don't know exactly where I missed out, but it sounds like my seatmates agree they want to have something in writing and a kind of a simplistic explanation that'll explain all this. I am actually looking for the ability to explain to a citizen that comes to me and says, how come my taxes went up by X? And let them see kind of what Commissioner Menser just brought up, that, well, yes, it went up, but so did your evaluation, went up considerably. And because of that, if you sell, you're going to get more money. If you're going to refinance, you can do, it gives you different options. So I'm just looking for a pretty simplistic explanation, and not necessarily just the median price, but maybe just a couple of examples of what it means to somebody with a $250,000 home, or a $200,000 and a $400,000, or something like that, so they could see if their value is twice as much it's going to cost me, because it's very minimal, it sounds like, as far as the actual impact to the taxpayers. But the perception sometimes is what is detrimental, I guess.
I'll see what I can do.
You can imagine how if the totality of the 1% is $400,000 or so, and that's divided amongst all the property owners in Thurston County, it doesn't take a math whiz to figure out that that's a very modest, minimal type of change.
Yeah, last week I brought up and asked about the 200, 250, 300, 350, but I understand if you did just the median home, the median price of $395,000, in Thurston County, what that rate would be. People can figure it out. Their house is worth only 200,000 or 400,000, 450. You can, I think, safely assume. So something along that line, like you gave us the example of Redfin's 395,000, what that rate would be, $459 in taxes a year. Or that would cost, rather. That's explainable to the public.
See,
But I
what
don't need a range of homes. Go ahead.
my only hesitation is that I have very little desk time between now and next Tuesday or next, and I usually don't mind working into the evenings and over the weekend. I do that, but I don't want to promise something and not deliver it. I'll see what I can do.
What you gave us is pretty comprehensive. And I'm not saying difficult to understand, but it's comprehensive. It's meaty. And we can understand it now, but Sunday, if somebody asks me, I would have difficult going through that equation, all this stuff that you just did with us. I wouldn't be able to sort them out.
Right. It's
So complicated.
It's very unfortunate that it is quite complicated. It's our property tax system in Washington State is not a simple thing. And that's not to say that it's not understandable. It's just complex. And what I possibly could do, what I'm sitting here thinking about is it's possible that I could post a calculator on the website that was something like we had for the one for the courthouse, where you put in how much your home is worth and it tells you how much the tax is. But I don't know that I could get that posted by Tuesday.
That's a good idea. Well, yeah, and I don't think you'd need to because you don't even know what the decision is going to be yet. We don't know. But that's a great idea. I like that. The calculator.
Yeah, I like the calculators too.
But this recipe is complex.
It might be. So I think Commissioner Edwards, when he dropped off the call, I think what he missed was the entirety of the banked capacity discussion, and I think that's all he missed. But could you spend like 2 minutes re-explaining that so that he understands that option?
Sure. So bank capacity, anything that you, any amount under 1% that you do not increase the levy. And again, let's say for a moment you did a levy increase of 0.5%. Then you could bank the other 0.5% to add to a levy in a future year that would allow, so let's say next year is a 1% levy, you could add that 0.5% and lift the levy by 1.5%. That's the whole concept of bank capacity, is you hold some back to use in the future.
It's an option we have. It's never been done because the board has always gone with the full 1%, but it was just something that I hadn't heard of before, or I don't remember having heard of before. So,
right, I have not brought it to you before. I wanted though to make sure this time you were aware that that is part of your option if you go at less than 1%. I've never had a board that considered less than 1%.
Go ahead, Gary.
Robin, I guess that raises another question for me, and I'm glad Ty brought that up. But so if we did a resolution of the statement of need or whatever to bring it up to 1%,
right? Can
we do that, just for an example, could we do that at the same time? Maybe we would, and this is just all hypothetical, maybe we would just increase by 0.5% instead of 0.6%. Let's just say we increase it by 1/2, but we had done the statement of need. Would that mean that maybe next year we would be able to raise it say 1.5%, and in a year we'll know better what kind of shape we're going to be in financially, if we're going to sink into a recession, depression, or whatever. Is that a doable scenario?
Yes, that is exactly how bank capacity works.
Even though we said we needed it, we could still just take half of what we thought we needed and set the other aside for the following year.
Yes, to do bank capacity of anything over the IPD, you would have to have a statement of substantial need, even though you weren't imposing 1% this year.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
Good time.
That helps.
I'll just quickly share that this conversation parallels one that the lot board had about whether or not we wanted to not do we have a 3% rate increase built into the budget. And there was a very lengthy discussion about whether we could not do it, cut it in half, or delay it by 6 months. And we finally got down to either just doing our normal or delaying it by 6 months or something like that. And then kind of catching up, kind of like what this bank capacity idea would be. And my concern there was just that, we knew that we needed to financially get back on our track because the capital facilities needs of the lot plant were really important. And I was just concerned that, hitting people would rather just kind of, my feeling was that people would kind of rather have this really steady, predictable, rather than getting hit with 2 consecutive rate increases, like in a 6-month period. Because the alternative was to, and in this case, it would be hitting people with a higher tax increase next year to kind of catch up that bank capacity. I feel like that would be less popular or popular with the public than just kind of going along in a steady way that they're used to, and that it kind of tracks, the way they budgeted over the last 20 years. Of course, valuations have fluctuated to some degree, but still, I was just concerned about this idea that we would catch up and then basically double hit people. And in that case, it was the lot ratepayers. And I think the same kind of considerations apply here when we think about this.
Yeah.
I agree. I think this will give us something to think about.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have what you need on that topic, Robin?
I do.
Gary, do you have what you need on this topic until Tuesday?
I believe I do, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And Ty?
Yep. Thank you.
Good. Okay.
All right.
Whew, good job. I'm glad you really understand this, Robin.
It took me quite a while to get to the point where I did. I had a great coach with Linda Rebick in the assessor's office.
I'd say this recipe is, I love to cook, but I couldn't follow this recipe. Now we're going to get into report on boards, external boards and commissions. Gary, what do you have? Anything?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Oh, please, yeah.
Okay. At least in the last week, I don't know that I'm covering everything since the last time we had to get together, but I attended the salary commission meeting on Monday, and we have received a response. I guess both of you know that we've received a response on that, right? Yes, I do. Okay, so anyway, I gave testimony of my own, not as the board testifying, with my normal view of the way elected officials ought to be treated. So I didn't put you guys in on that part of it. I just did remind them, though, that we had submitted a letter, and I was glad to see that they eventually thought that was a good idea. Also attended fire commissioner meetings, and again, those were pretty nothing out of the usual worth reporting. The EMS Council, again, they're working towards submitting the possibility of a plan to go forward for EMS funding, but that's not there yet, and we'll be more information to come on that. I attended the EDC's real estate forum yesterday, and really, to me, there was nothing new. We're going to have a reduction in commercial value because of this urban flight, if you will, and people working from home. And we're having a heck of a problem with keeping enough real estate as far as homes on the market to keep the price from skyrocketing. And that's what it's doing now, is going up. So maybe the last thing would be, I've been working with the citizens in the flood area down at in the valley from the Nisqually incident, and communicating with the FERC folks, that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, on the licensing from the Tacoma Power Dam up at Alder Lake. And currently, they have no responsibility about flood control. And that kind of concerns me. They've been watching the level here better since our flood last time around in February of last year, or January of last year, or of this year, I guess it was, in which those folks got flooded out down in the valley. But we haven't got that. We've not come to a solution on that licensing issue yet. We're still communicating, and I've got a citizen down there, Howard Glassetter, that's very knowledgeable and has been keeping me informed on it. And I think that's just about it for my report of activities that you guys might not know about.
Okay. Ty?
The only thing I can think of that would be of interest is we're approaching on Monday our JazzCom like mini retreat, and one of the issues that's going to be discussed is licensing, and whether or not the jurisdictions would like to standardize licensing, kind of have them set by JazzCom rather than by the different jurisdictions. And the ILA, I haven't really gone through it yet, but it's in my inbox to look at. And anyway, I'm just asking if you guys have strong opinions for or against the idea of changing our licensing. It would be kind of akin to the park impact fee situation, where there's different categories and some folks would go up and some would go down. But in general, it would probably be a slight tweak up for Thurston County residents. It would generate some more revenue. We ran those numbers, and I think Robin may remember them. I think it was like $17,000 or something. It wasn't going to be anywhere near enough to pay for our full service, but it was a little bit more income. But there was also the argument that it's better to have consistency across the county rather than Tumwater residents and Thurston County residents, et cetera, paying slightly different amounts. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense to me, but if you guys are adamantly opposed to that, I'd like to know it so that I don't advocate for something that the board's not going to be supportive of. Because we're going to have a discussion on Monday about how to deal with the countywide animal licensing fees.
Yeah, JazzCom, a few years ago when I was on the board, or that representative, they were looking at doing an online licensing, and then that kind of fell apart due to unexpected, I think, technical issues and such. Are they considering that at all still?
I think so. I'll find out for sure. But yeah, I think we were going to do that and it got delayed. There was some staff turnover. The IT department basically complete turnover. Then there was a thing where the IT support got moved to the city of Lacey. So there was just quite a few changes on the time that I've been on the board in the last year and a half. I still think that that's on tap to move to that direction.
Yeah, 'cause that was it was a time saver for the public. Might increase people getting their animals licensed, and so it'd be a revenue generator as well. Gary, do you want to weigh in on what Ty's asking?
Well, the one thing I'm curious about is on the fee increase to our general fund. I'm kind of curious. This goes maybe back to Robin as a question. I'm curious what kind of shape financially we're going to be in. So far, sales tax is up, but there's still that question: is it going to stay up? So, Robin, have we had another report on sales tax, or is that coming up pretty quick? Or?
I should have it next week. I'm thinking by next Tuesday we'll probably see the numbers from Department of Revenue. Not yet.
And then, is that going to? Do you think that's going to give us a pretty good idea of what's coming? I mean, you see the talk about online sales for the holidays coming up and all that type of thing, and I wonder if we aren't going to kind of reflect the state or national scene, if you will, and we can apply that towards our situation of getting more sales tax due to point of delivery, I guess is where I'm coming from.
So, Commissioner, I think we're going to be in uncertain times at least halfway through next year, if not through the end of next year. As long as this pandemic is going and we don't have a vaccine, and there's a chance that that businesses may continue to close, or a third wave, or any of that, I am unable to tell you if the next sales tax number is going to be the thing that lets us know exactly where we're going.
Okay, thanks.
So Ty, the option again was, can you explain that again for me?
Yeah, and again, I'm just asking whether you have a strong initial reaction. And it may be that you're open-minded and you just want me to bring the proposal back. I'm totally cool with that. I just wanted to, but if you guys were adamantly opposed to the notion that Thurston County, unincorporated county animal license fees might be raised, then I'd like to know that up front, because it would change how I would advocate in the JASCOM retreat about whether or not we should support. If I can tell them my board's not going to support a fee increase, period. If you guys are open-minded about it, then I'll try to do what I think is right and bring the proposal back. I feel like we haven't had any specific discussions. That's what Monday's about, but I'm guessing that there's going to be an appetite for standardization across the region, and there's not going to be a massive increase. Nobody is looking for that, but maybe taking the fees that are kind of the highest and nudging everybody up to that level type of thing is where I'm guessing it might go. And we're not totally out of whack. Like, nobody's 2 or 3 times somebody else. So we'd be talking about, if I remember the numbers right, we'd be talking about maybe a $28 fee would go to $35 if for a certain type of animal or something like that. It could be a few dollars, it could be $10 or $12. I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while since I've looked at those numbers, but I just wanted to ask you, because like I say, if you guys were like, heck no, I would never prove that, then I might as well know that before the retreat.
And we're only talking about cats and dogs, are we? We're not talking about hamsters and horses.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and so, depending on what the fee increase would be, if we were amenable to it, if it was $4, $5, $10, that will give us more services out in the county then?
Not really.
No.
It does help us. Robin can explain this, I think, but I think that it does help our assessment that the county has to pay on the jurisdictional assessment. We do get some kind of a credit formula for the amount of licensing fees that are generated by our jurisdiction, but it would not go anywhere near. We'd need, like I said in previous meeting,
yeah,
$200,000 or $300,000 more to actually fund the field services.
Okay. I'm not opposed to it. I'm open-minded. I'd just like to see what the kind of fee would, what it would be.
Okay.
That impacts
I believe I'm open. I think I'm open-minded on it as well. I'm interested in entertaining what would be a better solution than what we're doing now.
All right. Thank you. I'll come back with what we come up with. That's all I got. I haven't had intercity transit's been straightforward. We've got a lot of budget stuff with lot that was important, but it's been kind of laid out over the course of the summer and fall. So there's been no changes or twists and turns.
Okay.
So,
I only have two things to kind of report back. One of them I did at our electeds luncheon yesterday, or our meeting with the electeds. I'm on the one of the Thurston Thrives initiatives, and that's called Partners, which is partners, children, family, or children, youth, and family. And on Monday, the 29th, Monday, the 26th, from 3 to 5, is like a 2-hour symposium regarding parents or parental stress and remote learning. And we have Dr. Sean Dotson, superintendent of Tumwater School District, is going to speak and present, along with Scott Hanauer. He's our clinical director with Family Education Support Services, FESS, but he's the previous executive director of Community Youth Services. And he does extensive work with youth suicide. So that's going to be a very good symposium on Monday afternoon from 3 to 5, parental stress and remote learning with their kids. And then I'm on as you know, the governance task force and advisory committee for internal investigations, independent investigation of police use of force. And this 29th is our 10th meeting. And we have a hard stop on November the 5th in making recommendations for some type of legislation to go to the governor's desk so he can propose it in the next session. And so we've been chewing and doing surveys among the advisory group and the task force members on what would this independent investigatory body look like? Would it be completely independent? Or does it work out of the Washington State Patrol? Does it work for the AG? Does it fall under the auspices of the auditor? Where does it fit? And who would comprise of the membership of the investigatory body? Would it be just law enforcement or prior law enforcement, or just complete civilians? So it's an independent body, or is it a combination of the two? Not who would be by body, but by name, but who would the director? What would that person look like? What would the background be? What would the training needs be? The experiential of that person? What would they bring to the table? And what kind of powers would that body have? Would they have investigatory power? Of course. Would they have subpoena power? Would they have arrest power? Do they do warrants? Would they file charges? Those types of things. Should there be attorneys on this independent board as well, or a representative from the AG's office? And what is the obligation of the organization in the state? That you notify this independent body immediately within an hour of some type of a shooting or any custody death, or within 12 hours, within 24 hours? Who maintains the chain of custody? Of course, that body would determine that, as well as what is investigated, just the officer or officers involved in the incident, and you're investigating that incident solely on its own merits, or do you go into the officer's background and disciplinary background and history of the officer to see if there is any pattern behavior, see if there is any implicit bias, those types of things. So this task force and advisory group is made up of a wide range of perspectives. So trying to focus this thing down and squeeze people's heads down is really difficult. And I give the folks facilitating this quite a bit of kudos for managing this group. Yeah, my goodness. So it's very interesting. It's absolutely fascinating and eye-opening. And so we just completed that survey as of yesterday as to what our opinions were on those answers to those topics and several others. And we'll be coming back on the 29th for a few hours to discuss that again. But we have a hard stop on November the 5th per the governor's direction. So he has something tangible to take to the legislature, or we're going to work it up with his policy analysts, and take it to the legislature. But just fascinating work. And that is all I have to report. Any of that final thoughts, Gary?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
Ty?
Good.
Robin, you are our fearless leader. What say you?
I'd say go and have a great rest of your day.
Yep, prepare for a BHASO, or yeah, BHASO, yeah, whatever it is, and other stuff that we have. Our calendars are always busy. So thank you, and we're going to adjourn this meeting then. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Gary.